Okay, we'll welcome everybody. I'll start this meeting as vice president and let Dawn take over when she gets here. So I'm glad everybody got down to beautiful St. George safely and all that. And I'm sure that the mayor of St. George would like to welcome. So do you want to take a minute and do that?
Welcome to St. George. We ordered perfect weather for you today and tomorrow. Friday's in, but.
All right, thank you, Mayor.
I actually resent having to be stuck.
One more meeting.
Okay, so I hope we have a good conference. It looks like a good agenda. So thanks to the staff and Cam for putting that together. So we have consideration of our last minutes from March 28th, 2022. Everybody had a chance to take a look at those. Here's the president of the league walking in right now.
I move approval of the draft March 28 minutes.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the minutes. All in favor? Aye. Okay, I see the meeting. Unless you want to eat or something like that, I'll turn the mic to you.
Straight here.
There's a water, that would be awesome. All right, I'm going to turn it over to Cam and get my ducks in a row. And I really left on time this morning and I had a slow leak in my tire and had to go to Les Schwab and get my tire fixed. Anyway, sorry for the delay. Happy to make it here. Go ahead, Cam.
Perfect. Thank you, Mayor, and welcome everybody to St. George for the mid-year conference. Mayor Ramsey neglected to point out that she took a red eye. She's been on a red eye flight in the last few days and
Two of them.
two red eye flights in the last few days in order to make sure she was here. And I know many of you have also taken away time from family, from work, and from other activities to join us early for the conference for this board meeting and to join us for these next couple of days. So thank you very much. And you aren't alone. This is a record-setting mid-year conference. It's the first time in league history that we've surpassed 500 attendees who are registered for the mid-year conference. To put that in context, our average is 440 and our previous peak was 470. Last year, we were in the high about 390, which then we end up at
400.
Okay, so we did drop, yeah, we got over the 400, but coming out of COVID, it was a little bit lower than normal, but we're just excited to be back. And this year we're excited to set a record. And I've had multiple city managers over the last couple of days who made a point to tell me my new mayor is coming or my new council members are coming, because for the first time, we also tracked first-time attendees, and about a quarter of our attendees are first-time attendees. So please keep an eye out for those first-time attendees to welcome them. And we as staff are going to be ambassadors to make sure we contact as many of them as possible while they are here. And those of you as city managers, I can vouch for their whereabouts the past couple of days. We've had a tremendous UCMA conference and learned a lot from each other, lots of discussion about policy and governance and other things, and a very worthwhile couple of days to start the week. With the upcoming mid-year conference officially starting now with this board meeting, I just want to thank league staff for the tremendous amount of work that goes into pulling off this conference, especially on the heels of the legislative session. We as a Ledge team came back from the Capitol near the end of the session for an update on mid-year, and several of our staffers, as you know, are new this year. So they thought this was going to be essentially the brainstorming meeting about mid-year. In actuality, it was the here's what we've already planned without you meeting, which was a huge relief for me and for the rest of us. So kudos to Katie and Angela who are standing in the doorway. They are responsible for all the behind the scenes work that leads up to this conference. Nick Jarvis, our COO, and Janelle, Meg, and Susan, and John, other John, Molly, Rachel, and Liam, making sure I didn't miss any other staffers who are in the room that have helped pull off this historic event.
Carson.
Where's Carson? Oh, he wasn't behind me. Yeah, no, I was gonna come back to the election. I'm gonna come back to the election. But yeah, so everybody behind me I didn't miss. Those in front of me, Justin, Carson, as well. So thank you to league staff for the great work preparing this week's event. So thank you very much. Susan, can you take a moment?
Right here, Cam.
Hello. You were back there a moment ago.
I was.
Susan, can you take a moment and ask for volunteers?
Yes, Welcome to mid-year. Now we'd like you to welcome our attendees, our guests to mid-year as members of the board. There are about 7 or 8 sessions that we would like you as board members to volunteer, if you feel like it's within your heart and soul, to just welcome the folks as they sit down in each workshop and welcome the presenter, because that's the only way, other than staff doing it, that's the only way we can get them started in a proper manner and make them feel like everything's happy here. And then it's also a wonderful opportunity for the people in attendance to see the board members and to meet you. And then if at the end of the session, if you're still hanging around, you can just thank the presenters and wrap it up. A lot of these folks that are presenting are doing it for nothing. You know, it's just out of the goodness of their hearts, they're here to help us. And so we just want to give them a proper welcome. I'm going to send this around, and if you could just put your name by some of the workshops that don't have slashes through them already, if you're willing, if you want to go to that session and you're willing to just welcome everyone there. And thank you very much. I'll just look for it at the end of the table.
Perfect. Thank you, Susan. One other board-specific note is that our keynote speaker tomorrow is John Valant. This is the 3rd time we've tried to get him to join a league conference because of COVID complications. He was unable to travel out of the United Kingdom, but will be with us tomorrow. We will do a small VIP meet and greet with him afterward. That will occur upstairs if you may not even realize there is an upstairs, but when you walk over to the exhibit hall, there's a staircase to your left. If you go upstairs, league staff will direct board members after tomorrow's general session for a photo with John, if you are interested. So we are inviting league board members and then a handful of league members who were really instrumental in our legislative efforts during the session. And John's graciously agreed to do that photo opportunity. And so we're excited to have him this year. The timing's even better because a documentary just came out about his cave rescue, and there's another film in the works about the cave rescue in Thailand. So we're very excited to have him. My other request for the board piggybacks on something we discussed last time, and that is please send us information about regular member meetings that are occurring around the state. So for example, today I was chatting with the city managers of Manti and Ephraim about there's a Sanpete County Mayor and Commission meeting that occurs every 2nd Thursday night from 7 to 9. That will be added to our master engagement calendar. So as we're building out this calendar for league staff, Mayor Ramsey and others to attend, we want to make sure we have comprehensive information of where these events are occurring so that we can make sure to meet with our members in their homes and in their home regions, and then be able to incorporate you as board members. So Mayor Randall, Sean, send me the information about the Conference of Mayors meetings that take place here in Washington County. And so that information will be very helpful for us as we're building out the engagement calendar. Any questions from any board members about just membership engagement or expectations? Oh, I guess I should also know we'll be holding the board dinner tonight at 5:30 at Cliffside, and all are invited. And if you have family with you, please bring your family as well. Any questions from board members about expectations for the conference or membership engagement before we dive deeper into the agenda?
I don't have any questions. I would just say, if you have family who's still willing to go anywhere with you, especially to a work thing, I'm going to be impressed.
Yes.
I think my family could get down.
My family's like, I'm like, you guys can come. I mean, you can go do what you want. They're like, yeah, no. I said, I'll be working the whole time. We know. Yeah. So they're like, yeah, you go do what you got to do. It's fine. Okay.
Perfect. Then we just need to do conflict of interest, and then we'll move into that.
Okay. Are there conflict of interest forms should be right here?
In the packet.
They're in the packet. We always have them. If there's any new information, anything that's come up, please fill this out. Go ahead and turn it in to Nick or Cam or someone. That would be great. Item 3 on our agenda, board and commission reports and appointments. We're going to turn to Liam, who I saw sitting somewhere. Where is Liam? Okay.
Yep, and I was not on the agenda, but I'm gonna jump in before Liam's memo. The membership of the Finance and Audit Committee is on the agenda. And we would just like to, we asked for the past couple meetings some volunteers for that committee. We do have a couple that is chaired by Mayor Brett Hales, who is our treasurer of Murray. And we also had Councilmember Kate Bradshaw and Mayor Jeff Silvestrini volunteer to join that committee. So we would just bring it to the board to make it official. We have sent out our RFP for our annual audit for the next 5 years. That will close on May 13th, and we will meet in between to that group to bring a recommendation of what firm we should go with to this full board in June.
Okay, with that, I'm assuming I need to ask for motion for that, right? Yes, okay, so we have Councilmember Kate Bradshaw of Bountiful and Mayor Jeff Silvestrini to join the
If I'm the chair, you know we'll meet on bikes.
to join our Finance and Audit Committee.
So moved.
We have a motion and a second. And who's keeping track of that? Do I need to repeat where those are?
Right here.
You got those? Okay, good, thank you. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Is there anyone else that's clamoring, going, no, pick me, pick me? Is there?
I would just add that if folks do want to join, it's not, this isn't the one time. So if you do want to jump on board that committee, let us know. We can have you engage with that committee, and then we can come back and make you official at a board meeting as well.
It's a fairly simple process. We're happy to vote you onto this board if you'd like to serve on, and it's important. This committee's important. Yeah, very important. We appreciate those who are willing to do it. Is there any discussion of this? You're seeing none, all in favor of approving the nomination of Kate Bradshaw and Jeff Silvestrini to our Finance and Audit Committee, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you for your willingness to serve. Appreciate it. Okay.
Super, thank you. Okay, so we have some board appointments that will be brought before you. I think Nick has a document that you can pull up. Super. Okay, so at the last board meeting, we indicated that there would be a lot of boards and commissions available and that needed appointments. We got some applicants back for a lot of those, and we're still receiving more, so we're digging into those applications. We have some for the Joint Highway Committee, which is meeting this Friday. So we had a little bit of urgency on that one to get some people in place there. We had 3 openings, one in Region 1, one that was in South Central, and an at-large spot. So we went through the applications and we have 3 recommendations for the board to fill those spots. For Region 1, it's Council Member Amy Shumway of Farmington City. For the South Central, it's Councilmember Jeff Killian of Manti, and the at-large is Councilmember Tyson Glover from River Heights. Yes.
Okay, we have a motion and a second right here. Any discussion to this?
Cache Valley.
Okay. That is a good question.
Right next door to Logan. Oh, little tiny.
Does anybody know the population of River Heights?
3.
3?
Two now, 'cause
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve these nominations to the.
2,000.
2000. Great, to our.
Mayor,
committee.
is your microphone on? It's really kind of hard to hear you. Sorry,
Yeah.
thanks. Maybe it's just me.
Is that better?
Much better.
Okay, great. Okay, we have a motion and a second for these 3 nominees that are listed up there for, to represent us on UDOT's Region 1 committee. Any discussion? Okay, seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Congratulations to these 3, and we appreciate their willingness to serve. Are you going to let them know that?
I will let them know.
Okay,
I will
great.
reach out to them. And then I have one quick note just for the next board meeting in May. We will have probably like 10 or 11 boards and commissions to fill, so it'll be a big list. But they're still on our website, so if there's still interest in serving on those, you can still submit applications for those boards and commissions. Oh yes, SB 150. So there's a criminal justice data task force that came with SB 150. They're looking at data sharing between different criminal justice organizations and figuring out ways how to best manage that data. And it is a really important one, and we're really trying to find somebody for that. We didn't receive any applications on this first deadline that was last week. So if you know of anyone that would be a great fit there or would be interested, that would be extremely helpful.
Police chief would be more suited for, or like an IT specialist.
John, do you want to talk about that one?
Yeah, well, I'm sorry, I thought we had to open the door.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's true. We should.
We
have-
probably
did
do.
have one door open.
Yeah, we should have one door open.
So, thank you, John, I will. John and I have had several conversations with the executive director of the Commission on Criminal Juvenile Justice, who's former Bountiful Police Chief Tom Ross. And Chief Ross recommended someone who is on the administration side, who understands law enforcement and can bring the meat and potatoes expertise. Anything else you want to add, John?
Yeah, you want to say?
Microphone.
Yes, thank you. Happy to help answer that question. He wanted someone, first of all, that would be on there for a while. He thought that was important. And he also thought that it was important that someone that understood the economic side of a lot of what they're doing. In that they, maybe controls the purse strings or something like that. So probably, we were thinking probably an administrative type person.
Thank you. Anything else, Liam? All right. Cam, did you have anything else you want to add to that? Okay. All right, we're going to go on to item 4. We have our executive director report. Turn it over to Cam.
Perfect. I'll be quick on this one so we can get to the crux of the other main points. You'll see in your packet and on the table, the Advocacy Engagement Operations Report. Last year, we created this for the first time, and it's now become a Susan staple where, as part of sending the dues invoices to our members, we will send them this as well. And it's a nice snapshot of what we accomplished over the past year. When we were coming out of COVID last year, felt like there was a lot of information of what we provided to membership that we wanted to aggregate. And so we've started, like I said, a new tradition here going forward. If there's additional information that you think would be helpful to share with members, big and small, let us know, and we can incorporate that into the letter that will accompany this and potentially for next year's annual report. Covers the terminology that we're using as part of the organizational modernization of advocacy, engagement, operations as the divisions within the league. Before I jump to those organizational goals for your review and approval, I want to give Meg Ryan on our staff an opportunity to give you a quick update on where things are with the public assets management opportunity. This started several years ago. The pandemic pressed pause, but this is the $500,000 that you as a board received in December, and Meg will give you the update.
Yes, we're super excited to be able to try to execute this grant that we got. And I know this is old for some cities, Ogden, I think maybe even St. George, Mayor Randall, you're looking at maybe doing some of this. Salt Lake's looking, Kate, I think maybe of doing some of this, but basically this is a program and we'll have a lot more information. We have a session Friday at 8:45. We're gonna have a lot more information over the next month or so on exactly what we're offering, but basically we're gonna meet communities throughout the state where they are. In other words, if you have no idea what asset management means, we'll come and explain it to you. If you are trying to develop GIS inventory for asset-based mapping, we will come help you. If you are at the level of our big cities, Ogden, we will have a panel of experts who can come advise you on questions. So we're really trying to develop a program that can meet everybody where they're at. And that's the Reader's Digest version. We'll have a lot more coming to you in the next few months when we flesh this out. And just to mention also, Wasatch Regional Fund Council through their Transportation Land Use Connection Program is also a big partner in this as well. The name of the, it's on this, we're gonna have this is a snapshot of the brochure. It's called Your Land, Your Plan. Thank you to Mr. Jarvis for the tagline.
Perfect. Thank you, Meg. we as the league board, now 4 years ago, had a strategy session about this effort with Joe Minicozy, who was a league keynote speaker. And again, the pandemic hit, so we pressed pause on it, but now we're very excited. And WFRC received $500,000, the league received $500,000 in order to execute this statewide, regardless of the size of your community. And that was actually the ask. It was now from former Cedar City Mayor Miley Wilson Edwards. I remember her saying at the Sheraton Hotel, "This sounds great, but how do we make sure we scale it to a community like mine in Cedar City or the communities I represent on the league board, like Enoch and Parowan and others?" And so that's part of the effort here with these grant dollars, is to make sure we scale it for as many communities as possible who want to participate. One other thing I'll add about the advocacy engagement operations piece, that is new data that Carson put together for us in recent days that doesn't show up in this document, is a sense of how much member participation we had during the legislative session. We had over 200 attendees at every LPC meeting, either in person or remotely, which is a record. Our nightly email that Justin sent averaged 1,398 unique views per day, which again is a record. And our action alerts had an open rate of 45%, which is really high for blast emails. So we're really pleased at the engagement effort. And in part, as we as staff sat down and we're working on these organizational goals that we're bringing to you for approval, it's this new focus of engagement within advocacy is really front and center of what we hope to accomplish. So you'll see in your packet, Nick, you can scan down to the organizational goals and objectives for 2022 and beyond. This is a refresh of the goals that the league board approved in October of 2019, which was just a few months before the pandemic hit. We gave you our version of the report card at the March meeting, where we felt like we'd made significant progress on most of those goals. Several were still ongoing. And then we spent quite a few hours now, league staff, working through which goals to continue, which goals we felt were completely satisfied, and then breaking them down based on who's responsible for them and if they're ongoing or term-based. So for the board, these goals are essentially a restatement from the key goals from that 2019 effort. I'll read these ones aloud, but I won't read the other ones aloud. The ongoing board of directors goals include ensuring that the league policy platform and priorities address critical and relevant policy objectives, provide direction to maximize the political capital at the Capitol, engage with league members in geographic regions or communities of commonality that you represent, ensure that the programming and training is relevant and valuable, and ensure league operations are accountable, efficient, and transparent. And then that term-based goal, which we discussed and have prepared dues for your consideration later in this meeting, is to tie a membership dues benchmark to 95% of the ongoing non-conference operations and personnel costs by fiscal year 2024, which is a couple of years away. Then you'll see we've broken down the goals by executive staff. The executive staff, based on our new org chart, would be me as executive director, Rachel Terry as deputy director, Justin Lee as director of government relations, and Nick Jarvis as chief operating officer. So we would have some existing goals. And in fact, these would be the goals that when I do performance evaluations with the officers, that we would be using this as the benchmark. Then the advocacy division would have their ongoing and term-based goals. The engagement division would have their ongoing and term-based goals, and communication outreach being, and events being subdivisions within the engagement division. And of course, engagement fits with everything we do. Our operations team engages with members, advocacy engages with members, but now we'll have hopefully better understanding of everyone's responsibility in the engagement space. And then operations would have the ongoing and term-based goals. So most of these goals are admittedly staff focused, but we wanted to bring them to you for your approval to make sure we were all on the same page about what our objectives are going to be for the next little while, both for you as a board and for us as staff. So Mayor Ramsey, I'd welcome any discussion or a motion to approve the goals as outlined.
Anybody have anything you'd like to ask, weigh in on?
So Cam, this goes to one of the things you said before this about the newsletter and I mean, the Friday facts and the, you know, communications we had. I think that we need to convey to our membership at this meeting how effective it was when we put out a you know, call to arms for people to contact the legislature. We heard back when we were up there that they were hearing from people. And that's what makes this work. It's the strength of the league that legislators hear from us and our membership. So we just need to stress that works and thank them for that.
Yep, absolutely.
I just have a quick question, comment. Do you feel like that's too much?
Are you asking my staff or are you asking me?
I'll ask your staff. No, it's a lot. I mean, and I know we have this conversation almost every year, but do you feel like you've pared it down enough? And then all of a sudden we have $500,000 to do public assets. And now what?
Yeah, that's a great point because public assets isn't on there because it was this once in a lifetime opportunity to secure that grant money. So we pursued it and now we have this great opportunity to provide value to the members. When we went through that process in 2019, as you recall, that was a big question that multiple board members asked, is it too much? And ultimately, as staff, we discarded the ones that we felt we'd accomplished. Some of these carry over and some are new. And I think that'll be part of our ongoing evaluation process is it too much? Staff and I feel comfortable where it's at now. And then as we proceed, we may realize, you know, there are a couple of things on here that we just don't have capacity to do. Part of our vision of expanding our staff bandwidth is being able to provide that additional value to members, recognizing too that there's a lot that's outside of our control. We can't control how many bills the legislature runs, for example, and so we're constantly playing whack-a-mole with what comes from the legislature. But what we've also tried to do is be more specific with these objectives. So in the advocacy space, you'll see one of the goals is tweaking the LPC process in our bylaws based on the experience of the last couple of years of hybrid meetings post-pandemic. So that's something we think we can do relatively quickly that will streamline the operation of that advocacy arm, but not take away too much bandwidth from responding to all the other bills and concepts that are out there. So I appreciate the question. And it's one that it's one that I want my staff to be asking me as well. And if we come back and say, no, we didn't have the bandwidth to do all these things, and here's why, because Meg 6 months ago wasn't working on a $500,000 public asset grant, and now she is. And so therefore she's not working on something else. Great, that'll be part of the context. And I view most of these goals, all the ongoing ones in particular, as ones that will essentially be part of our mission statement for the foreseeable future.
Great. Thank you. Anyone else? Anyone online? Not saying anything? Okay. Okay, I'll ask if there is a motion to approve the 2022-2023 organizational goals of the league.
Move to approve.
Thank you.
Sorry, motion.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Right, seeing none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you, Matt. Okay, item number 5 on our agenda. I'm actually going to ask Mayor Silvestrini, could you do me a favor? Could you help us out? Appreciate it. Thank you. You'll see on here, it says Executive Director Contract. As you know, at our last board meeting, we talked about Cameron's contract. And you know, if we felt like there were any updates that needed to be made to that contract, and we came up with a plan as a group. And staff went to work on putting that plan into official form. And this draft document has been reviewed by the executive committee and approved by the executive committee to bring to the rest of you to get your input and approval. But what's in this, you're all receiving a copy of this draft because we're going to open it up for input. But and Cameron's going to stay right here with us. He'll be available to answer any questions if anybody has any questions or anything. And I think as we all know, incredibly responsive to members of the board and also to all of the city's that make up the league, and appreciate his willingness to join us for this conversation today. But everything that we decided at our last meeting that we wanted to see put into this draft form is reflected in this. We've got Roger here with us, and I'm going to turn to Roger and see if there's anything you'd like to add to this right now. Hope people
Only
get a
that the
chance to look over it.
Only the process on this particular this contract, this is the only one that comes to the board. And frankly, when I was the acting director, mine wasn't done this way. We sort of made it up on the fly. And when Cameron's first contract was done, it was sort of done the same way. We tried to establish a process this time, taking the suggestions that came out of the closed meeting. We then went to the management committee as per motion after closed meeting to say, would you please review and come up with a proposal. I then took that, put it into a contract form, and that's how it came to be developed. It basically, I would say, has just a couple of things in it to distill it. It basically raises the base compensation to a figure that we thought was appropriate, provides for two $5,000 increases after that to end up with the end goal we had in mind. For the first time, it allows for a COLA adjustment, because that did not happen. So since this was originally entered into in 2018, there hasn't been a COLA adjustment on this particular contract. I think those are the main economic changes. It largely made those, and then I cleaned up the language. And so in effect, this then went to the management committee. They gave feedback to me that they approved it. Now it's essentially back to the board for ratification in that process.
Yeah, thanks, Roger. And I just want to say that, we all know how tight the employment market is these days, and that a lot of our staff, including our executive director, would have other opportunities if they chose to pursue them. I think we've all, this is preaching to the choir, because we've all seen how hard Cameron works and what a great staff he has, hired and manages, and how effective he's been. And I can't even remember the number of times that legislators, came up to me and said, you really have a great executive director in Cameron. And so part of our thought on this, I think Cam is entitled to a, close your ears, Cameron, but he's entitled to cost of living increase like the other members of the staff, to help keep pace with what's going on in the economy. And then we just felt that this adjustment to his compensation was appropriate given the other opportunities that he might have, and because we're hoping that this will keep him here. So.
But at least for the first time, we now actually have a process.
Which I very much appreciate that. And I'm wondering if there was anybody who wasn't with us last time, if this is the first time you've seen it. We had a full quorum there having this discussion and coming up with this formula, these numbers, and this package.
There were no motions taken.
Right. But we had a quorum there to discuss this and really had a good conversation, a lot of good dialogue. Everybody had the chance to have input and give feedback. And there was lots of nice things said about all the good work that Cameron does. But I'm wondering if there's anybody who wasn't there who hasn't seen this, if you have any questions about it. Everything that we came up with collectively as a group is reflected in official contract form. And this is the legal representation of what we said we'd like to see put on paper and what we'd like to commit to as a board, what we'd like to offer to Cameron to commit to. So does anybody have any questions about what's in this specifically that you can see in this?
I just wanted the titles on section 5 in the heading.
I don't allow titles.
No.
There's a weird period in section 5 and a space in section 3.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if you want us to try
That's
to change
Nick's.
it.
I don't think it's that. It doesn't affect the content.
No.
It's all for the sign. It's simple.
And I appreciate that.
I'm distracted by that.
Right. Right.
So have you reviewed this with Cameron?
Yes. Cameron and I had an opportunity to discuss this, and these were terms that he was agreeable to. And if there's anything you'd like to say, you're welcome to. You can wait if you'd rather. We'll have you wait. Okay, great. Okay, yes. Yep, I did discuss this with Cameron. This is, so he is aware of what this says, and the staff are, Nick and Roger went to work in their official capacities putting this together, but I didn't have the chance to visit with Cameron and express the sentiments of the board and the things that were said and the offer that we'd like to make. to him and why we felt that was important and why it's something we wanted to do. So unless anyone has additional questions or comments, which I would absolutely open, I'm not gonna say unless, I'm gonna say, again, let's hear what you have to say. If you have anything to say before I ask for a motion.
In section 6, subpart 3, I think we need to give this vacation language a stronger tone that Cameron must actually take his vacation. He must take them, he must use them. He must take his family and he must leave his cell phone. So I don't know if we want to entertain it.
Good luck with that.
Yeah.
For what it's worth, I did tell him that. I did say that is the opinion of the board, that you have to take this time. Like you have
He
to.
has to take it, he has to go somewhere without cell service or leave his phone.
That's baby steps, let the baby get out.
Yeah.
They can rest the face, make their employees take 2 weeks off.
With that,
Can I add the caveat to make appropriate corrections? There are too many drafts on that.
Yes. With the appropriate typographical.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Second.
and then delete the phone.
And I'll second.
We have a motion and a second, with some minor typos and also that you have to take vacation time and leave your phone home. So I don't know that that can actually be written into the contract. However, I think that understanding exists, and that is not the first time we've expressed that since our conversation to him. I did pass along that that's something everybody felt strong about, so I'm glad it was brought up again. Appreciate that. Yeah. That being said, is there any discussion for motion? Okay, seeing none, all in favor of approving this contract with the executive director? Please say aye. Is there
Aye.
anyone? Thank you. Cameron, we really do want you to know how much we appreciate how hard you work, the time and effort you put in, the sacrifice your family makes on behalf of the cities and towns across the state of Utah. Mayor Silvestrini hit it right on the head. We've all had legislators tell us that, right? We've all had legislators say, Cam's the best. Like, you guys are so lucky to have him. And we know that. And we want you to know that we know that. And we want that to be reflected in this as well. I think having this not be revisited formally this way, since you hired on, I think you've had the chance to spend several years in this role. And we all know that you've given your blood, sweat, and tears and your heart and soul to this work. We appreciate it. The people of Utah benefit from it. All of our municipalities benefit from it. We appreciate what you do and want you to know that this is our commitment to you as a league board and representing the general membership of the league. That we are committed to doing everything we can to try to help you be successful as you exhibit that you always give everything you can to try to help us be successful. We're grateful for that. And want you to know that. And it's an honor to be able to do this and hopefully make this a little closer to what you deserve.
Perfect. Well, thank you, Mayor, and thank you, board members, and thank you on, not just for me, but on behalf of my family and also our team here. I appreciate the kind words, but it really is a team effort, and we have a tremendous team right now, and I want to retain the team and the goals that you just adopted, I think, reflect the potential that we have as an organization to build on what we've done. It's been an honor the last 4.5 years to be the executive director, and it's, everything you said about the time commitment is accurate, but it's nothing different than what you face as quote unquote part-time elected officials. And so it's an honor to serve alongside you as you work to make your communities better. And we're here for you and I'm here for you. And so thank you for the contract and thank you for the opportunity to serve you.
Thank you. And I want to agree with Cameron. We all agree. And I want to make sure that the staff of the league knows that this board 100% agrees with what Cameron said. And part of our desire to make sure that we keep this incredible staff, this team that's been put together that has done so much and is doing so much. And this team of fairly new team members coming together and doing so much this last session, great work. part of our desire to help make sure that that team stays strong and stays intact is making sure that we keep Cameron as our executive director. We do think we've got the right people in the right seats at the league. We could not be more grateful for all of you and what you do, and want to make sure that as Cameron does all he can to try to be supportive to all of you, we want to make sure that we can support Cameron in a way to make sure he is there to be supportive to all of you. So thank you to all of you. And that's part of what was important to us. This whole team is so exceptional, and part of keeping this team together is keeping you. And we appreciate that.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Marion, and thank you, board members. I appreciate it on behalf of my family. Thank you as well. With that, Mayor, we get to move on to
Let's
number
move on.
6.
Yes, item number 6.
Perfect.
Membership dues, take it away.
Yeah, appropriately, right? Yeah. Yeah, let the chuckles begin, right? Thank you to Nick Jarvis, our COO, who has, over the last few weeks, has put together countless different options for your consideration today. You instructed us at the March meeting to bring back a couple of options for your consideration. We've labeled them the very creatively named option 1 and option 2. Option 1 is the baseline option, which would mean no rate increase. The board would approve the same rates and the threefold formula rates that currently exist. Nick has pulled it up on the screen. And so we would apply those rates, and the natural increase, just based on the growth of the state, would be about 6.9%. And then you'll see that the ratio of dues to personnel and non-conference operations expenses would be 90.3%, which includes one more year of the ARPA assessment dollars. And the ARPA assessment dollars are the equivalent of 3.99% of membership dues. So that comes off of our books next year. That's what I was explaining at our last meeting, that we have one-time money right now between the public assets, the sponsorship money. But going forward, when the one-time money phases out, we want to make sure we are sustainable for those ongoing non-conference expenses. So option 1 is to maintain the rates, and then you can see that this year would be a 6.9% increase with just the natural increase in population and sales tax. And then we're projecting that a year from now would probably be about 8%, but I would put a huge asterisk on every projection because we're basing projections right now in pretty tricky economic times. So even though we are a year behind with the data that we use to assess dues, and we expect that 8.3% number based on because again, we're a year behind in the lag, that's our current projection. Option number 2, so Nick, I'll let you scan down to option number 2. After Nick and I went through a variety of different options, we took this proposal to the officers where we would just adjust one of the 3 rates. So it would not be adjusting all 3 rates, it would just adjust the sales tax rate. And the policy rationale for this is that if Cameron City increases in population, that doesn't necessarily translate to a city's ability to pay increased membership dues. The sales tax would. And right now, sales tax is the third of the 3 legs in the stool of our revenue. So essentially, under this proposal, it would flip and sales tax would become the second stool, population would become the third, the property value is still the biggest, but slowly working our way toward a little more equilibrium there. So if we were to, and then what we did is we said, if the goal is 95%, not this budget year, but the following budget year, then essentially cut that in half, do half now, and then consider half next year. Now, you as a board cannot make a decision for next year's board, right? So we would still essentially go through this process, and we would have a better sense then of economic situations, expenses, we'd go through the same process, but we would say that as of now, we would modify the sales tax rate, one piece this year, one piece next year, and the aggregate amount for this upcoming fiscal year would actually be in the aggregate 11.2%, increase. And then you can see in the memo what that looks like for the 95% ratio, and also how that compares with our ongoing personnel and operations expenses. So in light of the motion was for us to prepare this data and bring back options for you to consider. So you have option 1 and option 2 before you. So Mayor Ramsey, the decision is really the board's over whether to adopt option 1 or option 2. From a structural perspective, option 2, I think, gives us a better path to sustainability, but also means that it puts us on a better track for sustainability right now. If we were to go with option 1, yes, we can backfill with that one-time money, but then it means we'll be considering option 2 again next year, whether that's all in one bite of the apple or potentially pushing it out a couple more years. So we felt like option 2 was a reasonable request to the membership, especially in light of what we're trying to do with expanding our staff bandwidth and the organizational goals and what we hope to accomplish over the next year. Gary Hill's dealing with an issue at City Hall, but he made the point at the March board meeting that as we've discussed this with city managers, there was a general comfort level of city managers that they're willing to pay more in light of the fact we're trying to expand our bandwidth. So with that, Mayor, I'll turn it back to you for discussion around option 1, option 2, or what Nick would dread would be an option 3 that hasn't been built yet.
I do have a question. I'm a
Yep.
relatively new board member, so I have not been through the budgeting cycle before.
Mhm.
I mean, I know that our budget is set. I mean, we have everything balanced. We present it to our city council on May 3rd, so in a couple of weeks.
Mhm.
I mean, we've budgeted a little bit of increase in, but that is, I mean, my budget director hates to go in and have to, readjust things now. I mean, it's just one line item. So, and again, you just said, this board can't commit for next year. I mean, has there been any thought to maybe moving the process a little earlier, and maybe this information came to mayors before about the increase and I didn't pick up on it. So that's my question.
Yeah, and that's a fair question. It's something that we could revisit in our bylaws. Our bylaws require dues to be set in April. And that has just been a historical creature, but it doesn't mean we should keep it that way. So if, as part of this discussion, the board says, let's move that up, then, we as staff can move that up. And obviously the legislative session complicates budgeting, but it is what it is. So right now we're following the bylaws, and that's in part why we did the preliminary meeting back in March to get you thinking about it so that you'd be prepared to make the vote. And then come next week, we will circulate the information out to folks. But you're right, there will be cities as they're finishing their budgets in May that will get this, and it'll be, there will be an increase tied to it. Now it's, as you've got in front of you, what it means for every city and town in the state. And it ranges from a few dollars to a few $1,000s. So the percentage is worse, like truth and taxation percentage is worse than the dollar amount, but it is a real dollar amount.
So again, I mean, would anyone be interested in changing it to December right before the legislative session? So, because we start on our budget in January.
So do we.
Um,
I
so-
appreciate that you brought that up because we do too.
Just a thought. I mean,
We are finally, because of the bylaw that was adopted last year to do that 1-year lag, we are only now in a position where we could do it earlier, and we absolutely can. The reason we had to do it in April before is because we were relying on numbers and when they came out is what we would apply the rates to these numbers. So we are absolutely in a position now, staff-wise, where we could get that prepared earlier.
I think that's
Yeah,
helpful to
and
know
we could
too.
bring a bylaw change for this board to change those bylaws and move the process up.
I really like that suggestion for the same reason. We start on our budget in January and we haven't figured out, like you, it's figured out at this point. It's there. There has to always be room for adjustment, but if this could move up and make it easier for everyone who's working on their budgets a little sooner than that, that might be really helpful. Mayor Kafusi, I think you had something you wanted to say, Mike.
So I was gonna see if there's any way we could amend it as well and get on our budget cycle of July 1. That would just be helpful. I mean, our dues will jump up to $69,000 a year to be a member. And I mean, it's really, and Cameron knows, I'm always the one that's push back on money because I'm tight of money. So I think just because it's significant anyways, the membership fee, I would love to get it on the budget cycle. So there's not strong form of mayor, right? So if I need more money, I have to go ask, my city council for appropriation, and it gets tricky.
I think when we're looking at, that's a really good point. I think when we're looking at every municipality though, that we want to make sure people stay involved. And if we give this information a little later in their budget process, that automatic pushback of, well, we've already budgeted for this, there isn't more for that. It's going to be different if it's earlier in the process. But regarding option 1 and option 2, what are your thoughts on option 1 and option 2?
I think option 2 is a better plan for us long term.
Thank you. I agree with you. I think so too. I think we do need to look. And when Cameron and I talked earlier today, and I said, oh, 11%, that looks so bad. It is just like a truth in taxation. The percentage, it looks terrible. The bottom line is real money. But the percentage always looks worse, right? It does.
I think it goes to value. I mean, we're not talking huge. I mean, when we look at budgets and we say, wow, this could really affect our budget, and yes, in some cases, it's definitely more than others. I look at ours and it's about a $1,500 swing, one way or the other. It takes us from 15,000 to 16.5 or something. It's not a huge thing, but it's a matter of what it's worth to us and what is belonging to the league and what does the league do for us. And I think it's valuable for us to share that with our cities, with our councils, that it's what we get out of the league. That is it worth it? Yeah, it's gonna be a hard one to bite. It's a hard one to sell, period, to any council that this is worth it, and but it is. I think it's a message we need to send. I would though, if option 2 is our plan, and we know we can't commit next year's, but I would highly recommend that in the letter that goes out to the cities, that amount be at least brought out in there, that while we cannot commit to this and while we can't tell you this is what's going to happen, it is anticipated that should the board approve it next year, your increase next year will be this much. So that in that budgeting process, they can look at this and yes, if we don't do it, even if we do it in January, at least they know well in advance, you're probably looking at another 11% next year.
Can we make a decision? I don't know, somebody tell me, can we make a decision that is a 2-year decision that says this board has made the decision that fiscal year this and fiscal year this, that can only be overturned by the next year's board if they don't like it?
No.
We can't at all?
Nope.
Okay.
I just want to make sure we're still capping the small cities to 500.
Well,
5,000.
500.
Was it 500?
It's
Yeah.
500 for small cities.
For towns, yeah,
It says 500.
yeah, for towns. So Councilmember Malkovich asked the question, and for those of you who are new board members, last year, for the first time, we instituted a minimum dues amount to join the league, which is actually standard operating procedure with leagues around the country, where there's that minimum amount. We are not proposing any inflationary changes to the 500. Now, we actually run the dues for every community, and then if they are below the 500, it bumps up to 500. So we're monitoring that, but even that $500 minimum was still in the aggregate for the 99 towns in the state was about 1% of our total dues revenue.
But it's not capped, right?
No, it's not capped. So if a town grows above the 500, then they can, yep, that's right.
Any additional?
St. George will be paying a lot more. I would still like to see 2-2 or option 2. Because it's just worth it.
I have the same feedback. Mapleton is a 15%-ish increase percentage-wise, but it's really $1,000. But so for me, I like option 2 there as well.
I just think if we have the goal of trying to get to 95%, and I think that's a smart thing for the organization to do. that it's better to do the 2% now than to hold off on this and have a much larger increase in the future, which is going to be even harder to accomplish. So, you know, we're all facing this in our budgets with the inflation we've seen, but it's kind of like, it's better to bite off part of it now than to, you know, try to not do that.
Anybody else have any thoughts on this? You want to say?
I'm a fan of option 2. I think if we don't, we'll regret it, but it's a much bigger increase. And since I spend a lot of time during the session with the league staff, I think they're worth every bit of it. And if we don't spend it with the league, we'll spend it individually in hiring lobbyists.
I think that's a good point to bring out. I think that's a really good point to bring out. Yeah, it's true.
This is always tricky, right? Because the league staff has to manage $500 up to $72,000 per meeting. And it's just tricky. It's a tricky balance.
Yeah.
Well, Mary Ramsey, can I address that point? Because that is the nuts and bolts of this whole thing, right? And it's in part why over the last few weeks, we've spent a lot of time as staff working on updating our organizational structure and really putting engagement front and center of it, so that the communities that are paying 72,000 or fill in the blank number, they feel like they are in the leadership role that they deserve to be, while also making sure that cities that are not paying 72,000 but are still contributing to the league also have their voices heard at the table. Because ultimately, we're a stronger organization when everybody is part of the organization. The strength of the league is the membership. So what I'm excited about is we have enough staff bandwidth now, and we have officers and board members in place. And as we're building this engagement plan, is to be able to elevate as many league voices as possible, so that whether you pay $500 or $72,000, you feel like you're getting a return on investment.
Thank you. Any other thoughts? I agree with what Mayor Silvestrini said too. We haven't all done a truth in taxation before. Several of us have had to go through that, and several of us are facing having to go through that. But to me, this is similar to that. We can kick the can down the road as long as we want to, and then create a mess where you have to jump big, and nobody wants to have to do that. Nobody wants to have to do this. None of us want to have to do this, but I think, as has been said, the return is there. And I agree with Kate. We can pay this and continue to have positive outcomes from the legislature, the best outcomes we can hope to have, or not, and have different outcomes and be spending a lot more money on our own lobbyists trying to, the collective voice matters. So, okay, is there a motion either way to support option, I'm going to say it this way, is there a motion to support option 2 or option 1?
I'll motion to support option 2.
Thank you, Mayor.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve option 2. Any additional discussion? Okay, all in favor, please. Oh, wait,
Just
Marcia?
remind me again, when was the last time we updated our fees?
Yeah, thank you for that, Council. Thank you for that question, Council Member. The last time there was a rate adjustment was 2015, and that will be part of the dues letter as well. And then for what it's worth, previous rate adjustments were not really done in a transparent fashion. So my hunch is most members have no idea that dues were ever really modified. And so we'll make sure that we're being transparent, but we'll also, coming back to that organizational piece, demonstrate to members, this is what you're getting by paying more. We've expanded staff. These are the objectives. So here's the value add that you're getting. And I think, Mayor, I welcome a motion to revisit the bylaws for the budgeting process in order to move it up earlier in the calendar.
As part of the original motion?
No, as a second motion.
Second motion. Okay, is there any other discussion to the motion of it?
Yeah, I've already spoken in favor of the motion, so people know that. But the other factor I think that needs to be considered in terms of the idea of the horsepower of the lobbying that we get through this organization. If you look at the number of bills that have increased in the legislature and the number of bills that our staff tracked and followed and took positions on and got us involved in, in the last year or two or three. I mean, it's a significantly larger effort than it used to be as well. And that warrants the staff to be able to do a good job lobbying. And I don't think there is another lobbying organization that I'm familiar with that has the kind of horsepower the league brings to the table. So.
Thank you. Any other discussion?
Just would love to hear from the small cities because their budgets are smaller. You're in support, Maple Cliff, the other small cities that are trying this.
Well, I think it's a good thing. I've seen the value in the league, and I think that the increase is worth the benefit that we give to them, even the smaller level.
And I went through the list of all the small cities in Washington County and even Iron County. And some are from $40 to maybe $600. So I think they would not hesitate to raise that.
I think part of it too, for those of us who are from smaller cities, is to be able to look our citizens in the eye when we're having those budget discussions and tell them how we engaged with the league, not just what the league has done on the Capitol, but how our cities specifically have benefited. And I have found that that's more, when they're upset about budget, right? These are the kinds of things that they say, that's just fluff. And they want us to get rid of all the little things like this. And so when I can say specific things that helped our city, then they kind of have an aha moment of, okay. But they don't want to have to pick between, are we getting roads and water, or are we joining the club with our friends, right? Which is a lot of what they think, but they don't know what we can do.
I think that's a good point, that it really does fall on us as members of the board to be ambassadors for the work that's being done. We all know that, right? But this especially, I think it's going to mean that we have to just make sure that we're vocal and can speak to that. Anyone else? Okay, all in favor of approving option 2, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Option 2, it is. Okay, and now I'll ask if there is a motion to amend the bylaws, to have a proposal brought back to us to amend the bylaws, looking at changing when we do this so that it can be earlier on in the budget cycle.
I'll make that motion.
I move that we give staff, I'll second the motion, to give staff direction to bring us a bylaw change.
We have a motion and a second. And strong support as well from Logan. So any discussion on this? Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Advocacy and engagement update. Let's see. We're going to turn to you and Rachel, Justin.
Yep.
Team, we'll let you take it away with our updates on our advocacy and engagement. Where we're at.
Perfect. Well, first of all, thank you for the vote that you just cast. Thank you for the confidence that shows in our team and in the organization. It's not an easy vote, and we acknowledge that and appreciate your willingness to do that. And it's our pledge to live up to that trust as we attack the year to come. And that's really what the next hour, the rest of this board meeting is about, is strategizing about what's to come. In your board packet, there's a document, so I'll let Nick pull it up. Actually, Nick, will you just keep it on the front page of the agenda for now and just scan down?
You want to get the questions?
Yeah, right there, just stop there. So in the March board meeting, we presented to you about how the LPC survey that we sent out last year, how we were successful at achieving the objectives that came from that survey, both in passing legislation, but also in defeating bad ideas and bad bills. Well, a couple of interesting tidbits over the last couple of weeks. We've had conversations with legislative leaders and with other stakeholders, and we have some time-sensitive but tremendous opportunities right now as a league to help direct the dialogue in both the Unified Economic Opportunity Commission and the Commission on Housing Affordability. I'm going to turn it over to Justin in just a moment to give you a little more detail there. On the The second bullet point is the outreach plan for mid-year, and one thing we've listed there is caucuses. And we've spent a lot of time as staff talking about how we can empower league members more through the caucuses that we put together. We may bring back to you later this spring some bylaw changes about the caucuses in order to empower members of caucuses. For example, the league officers meet regularly with the governor's senior staff to talk about policy issues through the year. And the governor's staff reached out to us a few days ago and said, we'd love to put together a group of league leaders to be a sounding board on housing related policy. And we thought we obviously would use the officers, but in addition to the officers, being able to have a cross representation of members from across the state who could be part of that. And we could use the caucuses in order to recruit the right person from each of those groups, and then also use league board members as liaisons with the caucuses, again, as a way to elevate those voices. For example, it's cities of the first and second class. And I guess let me back up, make sure everybody's on the same page what I mean when I say caucuses. It's not what you went to on Saturday a few weeks ago. When I say caucuses, yeah, it's not a caucus convention system. It's a caucus conference system because it's a league conference. Our caucuses, we actually have 6 caucuses in the organization: women in local government, cities of the first and second class, rapid growth cities, established mid-sized cities, traditional rural communities, and resort communities. And so the idea is during the conferences, we get those groups together to brainstorm and discuss best practices and general policy concepts that then we use as part of that outreach to bring back to you as we put together a strategic plan for policy. So that's what will happen tomorrow afternoon. And a couple of the questions that we're going to break up into small groups to discuss today are really the chance for you to do a deep dive in a smaller group here that then will facilitate the broader discussion with those caucus members tomorrow. So we would welcome your thoughts over the course of the conference and after caucus meetings tomorrow of whether you think those caucuses ought to be more formal than what they are now and formalize them more, or if we keep them as is and use other ways to elevate the voices of our members. We also plan to send out a follow-up survey. At the last board meeting, we showed you the ongoing list of topics that we're expecting for the coming session. Several of you brought up other topics that we have added to that list. So Mayor Monson, you brought one up. Mayor Shepherd, you brought one up. Gary Hill brought a couple up. So we've added those to our list. And we'll be sending a survey after mid-year so that we can see what's the universe of potential city bills. And then we can start planning our staff bandwidth around it. For the rest of the meeting, for the next hour, we want to do a deep dive on some of these key questions. Justin, will you give a quick overview of where the Unified Economic Opportunity Commission was last year and is now, and likewise Commission on Housing Affordability, and then I'll come back and do GOPB.
Sure. Thanks, Cam. So the UEOC, the Unified Economic Opportunity Commission, is a formalized commission, and I'm sure none of you remember this, but we had this bill, HB 151, dealt with retail incentives last year. That bill came out of UEOC. And this is a commission that works under the Governor's Office of Economic Opportunity. It is chaired by the governor, the Speaker of the House, the President of the Senate, several cabinet chairs, several other people sit on it, including Mayor Dawn Ramsey is our representative from the league on it. She's done a phenomenal job for us. But this commission is looking to push its weight around. You've got high-ranking people there right out the bat that can make an impact. They passed about 25 bills last year during the legislative session that were products of the Unified Economic Opportunity Commission, UEOC's working groups. So this is something that we want to watch closely and that we want to be involved in. This year, there's really 4 working groups that we want to watch. Pay attention. I'm going to give you these 4 working groups. Working group on water infrastructure and environment. Working group on growth and transportation. Working group on government efficiency and cooperation, and working group on innovation. Now, Cam and I had an opportunity to sit down with staff from UEOC and GOEO a couple of weeks ago, and they very much want our input. They want individuals from the league to be a part of these working groups. But this is something we want to be involved in. This is something we want to watch. So the question we're going to be asking here in a few minutes is what ideas we want to take to them. One of the questions that was asked this morning in UCMA is, how can we be proactive in legislative efforts and not just reactive to what legislators are bringing? This is one of the big ways we could be proactive. We can take ideas to them. Yeah, speaking of the Commission on Housing Affordability, so the CHA has been folded into the UEOC framework. It used to be its own standalone thing, and it now sits under this umbrella. So it's another thing where we're involved, but that's what we want to start thinking about. What are things that we can take? What are issues we want to tackle? What are suggestions we have so we can take it to this group and get our people working on those? So Cam, I'll kick it back to you for the other update.
Perfect. So that is listed in your agenda as question number 2. In a moment, we're going to break up into 3 groups, and I'll tell you which group you're assigned to, and league staff will essentially facilitate small group discussions around what Justin just asked. And it's question number 2 on your agenda of what you want us to take back to the UEOC and the CHA in the space of growth, housing, and the like. Now, when I say us take it back, I've mentioned it before, but I want to mention it again. Mayor Ramsey, as the league representative on the UEOC, cast the lone no vote in January for the original version of House Bill 151. So governor voted yes, Senate President voted yes, House Speaker voted yes. I could go down the list.
And I was sitting right next to them and voted no.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a phenomenally brave vote.
Yes, but she voted no because this board had given direction to your board package. You can see the one pager that you've put together thus far. And then the second question is what do you want us to get back to UEC and CHA, proactive ideas and questions you want us to ask. So here it's currently 3:24. We're going to break up into 3 groups and spend about 30 minutes probably on these 2 questions. And then we'll come back as a group. Each group will report back. You can summarize what will be with caucuses tomorrow. So this is a chance for you to think through, okay, what do I want to help facilitate tomorrow? Because we're talking to a broader cross-section of league members. So the three teams are as follows. We will be over at that corner, and this corner. Since Mayor Caldwell's already standing over there, I'll announce Mayor Caldwell's corner first. Yep, perfect. So Mayor Caldwell's corner, we'll have Mayor Caldwell, Mayor Kafusi, Mayor Daines, Mayor Monson, and Councilmember Egbert. That corner will have Mayor Silvestrini, Mayor Randall, Councilmember Bradshaw, Colleen from UMCA, and Councilmember Marcia White. And then this corner will be everybody else, Mayor Ramsey, Councilmember Dustin White, Mayor Shepherd, Councilmember Malkovich, and Gary Hill. League staff, let me quickly announce league staff where you're going. Now, and then I should point out, for those of you who are online, there will be an online conversation about this too, that league staff will be facilitating. So just stay online and you can participate. I know a couple of you are in transit. We'll just assign you when you arrive. So those of you online, just stay there. So in that corner, I'll be there with Liam and Molly. In Mayor Silvestrini's corner, that'll be Rachel, John, and Roger. And in this corner will be Justin, Meg, and Sean. Okay, so it's 3:25, Mayor Ramsey. We'll shoot to come back as a group, a committee of the whole at 3:50.
For those online, if you'll just look in the chat, we are actually going to be out on a separate Zoom meeting. So just follow that link that Carson has shared with everyone. Thanks.
Good, how are you doing?
Roger, you're here. Sorry, you're over here.
Identified 6 areas of awareness about architecture. And so we had 6 things on there. This is part of that. Hey, what are the action items? Because that's the one thing that you talk about first all day long. Then, and it helps you buy into it on an ongoing basis, right? Because people say, yeah, but as cities, what are those action centers? So if I would have gone and established our items that we follow, and as we go forward, people are saying that's everybody on January 1st thinks they want to go to the road. Every person wants to go and change. Settling your right now. And so everyone's going to which equals opportunities, which overall is a quality of life. Okay, and how do we get to a mindset of that, not only as city leaders, but in our business community and in our residents, right? So we established a whole bunch of metrics for each of these 6 different categories that we thought were coming to our growth. We established metrics for each of those 6 things, so we're having a summit and our speakers are having their topics so that we can start then data resolution for cities.
But no one was doing it during that. Two other women. They were just.
On the table. Do stuff.
I was thinking about this right at the beginning of your question. What would be success of this campaign? And I think for me, the first one is just some acceptance. I feel like our residents are going through a stage of grief. There's denial and there's anger. Many of them haven't quite gotten to that point yet of acceptance, which is one of the evening stages.
Yeah, we were all.
And so.
And the legislature only has now.
I need to get to acceptance. To acceptance at some level.
If we're looking for, which is really an outcome of outreach to me, if we could just have residents at a minimum accept that growth is coming, not be in a state of denial, you know, then we can actually start seeing. So I think for me, that's a big outcome. It's coming. Follow up by that if we don't accept that, then it will happen to us as opposed to being able to make changes. You know, those are things we talk about.
Yeah.
Still going? Yeah, well, they went into some chat, like small groups. Yeah. Oh, bless it, I gotta bail. Do it. Somebody doesn't drink all this. It's gonna be in there in 5 minutes.
It only takes 5 minutes to drink. Just take your time. It'll last for you. You're assuming that they'll be ready for you. And it's not like it's going to stay cold. It won't stay cold for you.
It's pretty good.
Want to try mine? It's just avocado, kale, spinach. Really? Really?
So I just go city by city. So I think tools are great, but it's, you know, numbers, reality.
So to me, it's part of that. It's also being opposed to that.
I'm using one.
I don't, we don't have the message that. So
here's something.
How everyone is part. And I don't Everything on my gut,
So here's what I love.
A large.
Right now, and I'm saying that's what it's doing. Everyone can do that job at Oregon or wherever they work. Wherever they apply. So we have on. Here.
Well, that's just part of the. We have our, that's the biggest thing. I can they can have like a great job.
We have, so the numbers that they are. Did you know that that region is by the state workers average wage in the rest of here. Now, it's something our. The number of jobs in the rest of the state.
So that you.
However, I think that's necessary.
And graphics should be. Those are the kinds of things that really are helpful. Some smaller cities, we don't have to wait to figure that out. That's what I sometimes do, is that messaging sometimes. Well, what we mentioned on this, right, you're actually, and I think that value too is actually thrown together or expand. Or whoever. It might have been your, it might have been you too, but he used to say it all the time, we're gonna do this, you know, and now we're just talking to our residents. They do go to school, other things, they do shopping other areas, they're not really sitting down and saying, and I thought, we don't think about sitting down and talking about just they should know what this is being taught for community, right? Which is several. But we don't get that when we're talking about growth and prosperity for our cities. You know, all the residents don't do this. We go outside of the cities, we're like walls, for some of their services at once. And they're okay with that. So essentially, that's how.
That's another way This is what it was, and now it's something different. So that was
Number of positives of growth. Many of those are going to translate to cities could sort of take them on their own. For example, I think that's a huge benefit of growth balance. You're seeing old neighborhoods, there's turnover, old street models, better things. Everybody. So that's what. But that's only happening.
I see how far out it's like. So as things grow, and when it gets to the point, they're going to conversation. So why not buy that? It's like it on and off. And so there's gentrified issue.
I think that would be a fun exercise to go and just everybody putting their just by having this all of us do we only like change when it's good, right? We forget that change is good. We all want it. Somehow we can help. And that's part of it. There are negatives with growth, and everybody gets to see those. So I don't think it matters anything. It's very sure that like that. It actually increases. But growing, that's something we want.
In order to legitimize business complex coming in. I may get forced in your take all projects. Because otherwise that's great. And you were more than welcome. File it on the council. I just
money to that project. They knew that I spent $200 because I think
Yeah, and that's that vibrance part, the opportunity that comes with it. Education, all of that.
it's.
So I agree.
So I think that we are talking about.
But also that. Designed by one of the things that for the state, so. The state is doing hours. They can even change the distribution, but the state, yes. So the state is looking for our input. So.
And they got money, right? So.
The idea is going to be different outreach. Yeah, so I think like. Having done those before, it's always pretty. So I wonder if all of this is was something you could also. No, like, yeah, or just some fill in the blanks for like. Yeah, so that's a wonder, that's what they use. I mean, it's not gonna say that's one thing. If I go back. What is the state? In this case, and they're talking about what is the state trying to accomplish? That's not you out there talking about. No, I think, no, honestly, I know, I see what the state. And I honestly. I think so, but they're trying to define and density issues, different things in different places. So that's why I like to see that there's so much just that's my story.
So this, it's interesting you say growth, because one of the very discussions. You say growth. Because growth is. And then you bring your. What I'm saying is, there's largely. It's not that we should have it. Yeah. Saying we're not incentivized
But I always think we think about growth. I mean, I always think that really thinks housing. There's other things we should grow. We always, we just talk about roads. We need more, we need more.
We have all these
Jobs.
So we have all these things that are out there, and then we get upset when we or because we have to work. So it's like two values are crashing against each other. And so messaging, this isn't me.
What was?
Well, and that would be part of that message, right? Look at that. This for so long. Great job. And then what does that mean? And the part of the company, especially for those small businesses, they have companies.
Oh, yeah.
But a lot of that is companies, somebody know that. So how do you and yet we know that someone is being Airbnb for $1,000. So those are the kind of challenges I think that some cities have in regular residents.
Did you get yours built?
There is robust short-term rental.
All right.
I felt like California.
So that we can different jobs per hour. Well, somebody else posted one that we have to and say, Utah, this is the place to live.
others, you know, come visit. There's some of the best places to go see. Here is Moab. So this message to California. But that tells me that. And our residents who are we asking?
We like the law enforcement. But, you know, the surveys we did turned out that we have a very. Why I know that's why.
Trying to figure out and then I'm going to right now, this week, we're focusing on some kind of public messages. So like, for example, something like that. They want to also showcase what our state's actions are taking on water legislation. And they want to talk about seeing local relations, but they want to garner ideas as well for other politics to address. And then they want to do some kind of but they are really looking to us for what we want in this conversation. And then I say too, one of the things is you feel like and so our citizens on design. Okay, we have a fast storage, right? And so they just wonder, why are we doing just doing a single home? We're not even a single home because there's homes around and we're scared. It's so by the message that we send out, why are you out and you want upset then why don't we? I personally.
Years ago, comes down to grade. He's working a lot.
One more minute, everybody.
With a splash.
As long as we go No, we're
gonna, so we didn't get one, actually, you talked about the question about ignoring. And we never straight up. Tomorrow, in our conference meeting, we're gonna be revisiting some questions. So, I mean, this is by no stretch the the other yeah, if you sum it up. Yeah. Yeah. I think, yeah, it's different messaging across the state. We need smart growth. And we need good ways to explain. So I did half of my yard, not the house I'm in now, a different house. I zero skate part of it. My neighbors freaked out when I started trying to grab this. They're like, what are you doing? That's insane. I'm like, just give me a couple weeks, guys. I promise it's gonna be cool. And by the end, it was very, very cool. I had a cool stone stream and some other stuff, terraces. I put a little bridge over it. People were like, oh, it's so cool. Yeah. Yeah.
And most often the same color. And at best, it's yeah.
It's like river rock. And I made it so it was nice free. And then I put another bridge. I'm like, I know. It's super cool. Until you show them. So that's exactly right. You gotta show them this guy. I'll send you an email. Yeah. Send you an email. So I sent you an email. Asked me to join in. Sit in for them. The proposal that's just come through to change Davis to yeah, and add a couple of other things in and so forth. Maybe they weren't Utah mentality.
I will take a look at it. Oh, I trust the Mark Shepherd. All right, let's bring it back, everybody, for a quick summation. Yeah, wow. All right, everybody, welcome back. So Mayor Ramsey, if it's okay with you, I recognize that this is the last item on the agenda before dinner tonight. But as we let each group report back and then have a summary discussion, remember we plan to ask the question about the UEOC concept within our caucuses tomorrow. So hopefully one of the takeaways from this discussion is how can we pull out additional ideas and feedback from other members tomorrow that'll help inform our strategic direction this interim. I also want to thank league staff for handling the logistics. And I neglected to mention when I was thanking league staff earlier that part of our staff bandwidth expansion this year was that we contracted with Todd Godfrey, who will be doing our powers and duties session tomorrow. He's an attorney with Hayes, Godfrey and Bell and has been our land use advisor and a legal counsel with us in the land use space and did our powers and duties handbook this year. Todd's been participating remotely, and also we contracted with Sean Guzman from St. George City to help expand our bandwidth and bring his decades of municipal experience to the forefront on behalf of the league. So thank you to them as well. With that, let's start with that corner, which I believe was Mayor Silvestrini's corner. Actually, no, let's start with the presidential corner. Sorry. You're yours next year. Presidential corner, Mayor Ramsey. I don't know who your spokesperson is, but you've got a lot of notes.
All right. So we talked about the idea that we're doing something in Utah County called Growth and Prosperity. And so we talked about how do we message that growth does bring prosperity, which equals growth equals prosperity, which equals opportunities, and accentuating some of the positives of growth. We have our children can go to school here, not just public school, but higher ed. They can find jobs here. Now we need to find housing here for them. Accentuating some of the other positives. We talked about different metrics that could be put in place. We want to know, Gary said, the 5 steps of grief. We need to make sure that we've identified those so that we can recognize when our residents are in one stage or another, because then we actually meet them where they're at. And some of them have different stages. Also talking about doing, I'm trying to just think, regional benefits. You know, you just like you do in a business community, you see that there's benefits, maybe not always in your city, but some to the city next to you, and start showing them the positives of the regional benefits of having growth in their area. Let me think of what else we had. We were just talking about so many different things. Oh, relating issues like transit, housing, jobs, and environment, infrastructure, making sure that those are all related and not just talking about housing, because they need to be able to get to that housing. And that would be an important aspect. Having regional toolkits through the AOGs, so that the toolkits and everything that kind of like Wasatch Front has done, regional council, they have graphics with data, and having that throughout the state might be helpful for other communities to be able to use those on social media or on city newsletters or on your websites. Then we also talked about, really focusing on smart growth, because people want to identify as being smart. So if we focus on smart growth and what does that mean, they're more likely to start looking at it more logically. And as we have those metrics in place, we have data, we're able to showcase more of that, those analytics that talks about smart growth. Did I leave anything out, team? I think that's it. We can get good examples and good projects, and really showcase from throughout the state some of the good things that are happening. And also, we want our the other thing was that showcasing that our growth is the majority of it is internal. It's our kids and grandkids wanting to live here, and that's a good quality of life for us.
Perfect. Thank you, council member. Any other thoughts about what Group 1 outlined? Okay, well, in that case, Mayor Silvestrini, now we'll go to your corner, and then we'll wrap with Mayor Kafusi's corner. Here's your...
Yeah, I mean, he said all the stuff he wrote down. I guess I can't really see it from here, but okay. So on that, in terms of the statewide conversation about growth, what success looks like, we hope that we'll come away from this with the average Utahn understanding, basically, that Utah has been the fastest growing state in the country over the last 10 years, and that every community in our state has a role in addressing growth in order to preserve the quality of life that we know in Utah. John, I can't read the rest of it from here, but
it was meant that way. You talked about everyone has a role. You said that already. Understanding that a lot of our growth is, if not most of our growth, is internal growth. We thought that it was important that these are the things that we thought people should understand. And we talked a little bit about the legislature is there to save us, as we all know. But thank you. One laugh. I got one laugh there. That was good. let's talk from a group. We talked a little bit about giving them a toolbox.
Yeah, when we got into the discussion about the things that we actually constructive things that we can suggest that to improve the planning for growth, one of the main things that we talked about was just let us in the planning process for legislative policy before you formulate it, so that we can watch out for unintended consequences and come up with better policies, a team, local government, state government, and all that. I guess that's the main thing about that is, go ahead.
Yeah, we also talked about the importance of education. One of the we talked about a lot. The three things that we did, I wrote down, I guess, is the negativity of these upward housing prices, that they're not sustainable for good growth, not sustainable for our kids to be able to live in our communities, positives of well-planned areas, and opportunities. In a word I loved, we came up with vibrancy, right, of new growth. And we thought it was important to engage all communities, but we specifically talked about transient communities that live in apartments, and we need to engage them about kind of what the future and things like that.
And then engage the skateboarders as well as the pickleball players.
Yeah, we have a good story about that if you want to hear it. A great story actually from Bountiful, and so I thought it was really good. And then we talked about this, and I'm editorializing here a little bit, but we talked about how the legislature likes to be our regional collaborators, and that we probably need to replace that with us doing our own kind of regional collaboration. You know, a specific was, you know, Washington Terrace is a small town and right next to Ogden, and one might have the resources, one might not have the resources, and yet some of those kind of transportation issues, other growth issues are really a regional issue, and that we need to take the lead as cities and doing our own collaboration in those kind of areas. Did I editorialize too much there, Mayor? Suggestions to the legislature. Stay away from us. No, I didn't say that.
Well, you didn't write it down like that.
Yeah, it says talk to us early before bills are established. Okay, you just add on to whatever he says. We talked about the importance of legislative field trips. Not only our city's work program, I talked a little bit about our city's work program, and those legislative field trips could be, you know, individual things, but we also need to, you know, if you think about someone, say for Cache County, they've never seen a great, you know, like a great transit center or something like that. And that maybe we ought to try to do field trips with some legislators and take them out of their areas and help them understand what can be done and what some of these look like, because I mean, so I think we have to have those field trips.
We're all coming for a ride on the Provo BRT.
And I just like to point out the UEOC did actually specifically talk about going on field trips, both locally and abroad, to look at how certain things work. So that's certainly something they're looking at.
Yeah, but I'll always say, remember, it's our city's work field trips. And smart growth has to integrate with infrastructure, schools, transportation. That was brought up over there. All kinds of other infrastructure that we need to educate people on that. We need to do that. And you know, it's always interesting about open space because people always think of cities own a field somewhere that it ought to be turned into some kind of asset. But open space is really, really important. And it is an asset. It may be a future asset, but it's really important. And so open space is an important asset. And we also talked about, and this might go but a little bit with collaboration, is the legislature needs to understand that some of the cities just don't have the expertise and the staff, and you don't zone for them, but you help them get the tools to be able to do that.
Perfect. Thank you, Mayor Silvestrini and John. Any additional comments from that corner before we go to Mayor Kafusi's corner? Okay, Mayor Kafusi.
First of all, Molly's a champ. She wrote fast and furious with all of our whining that went on and on about everything. Really, just the takeaways for us I would sum it up in two. Probably one of the first things was the local control piece. We always put that front of mind, but what does that exactly mean? When people throw out, like smart growth, what does that mean? Are you smarter than me because you're allowing, but local control, what does that mean to us? We kind of dug into that a little bit and talked about, for us, the wins are for Provo and Ogden and Logan. The bigger cities would be some type of a burden lift. We're handling, we have over 60% of the affordable housing in Provo, and Ogden's hurting, and so is Logan. And so to ask the surrounding county cities to somehow figure out a way to reward the burden carriers, or come up with a better term. And then the other takeaway I think would be, after all those notes, would be probably on, as I looking at them now, the education piece was quick but short, but education really matters to the public. I shared a statistic, Mayor Mendenhall and I were talking and a while back, and in the legislature, there's a study that 10 years ago, 80% of the legislators used to be, came up through city councils and school boards, and 20% were, I've got an idea, I'll run for senator, or I'll run for House rep. And now, as of last year, it's completely flipped. 80% have never had any experience in the local level and are just up there throwing bills out left and right. And 20% are the ones that have come up and are the ones saying, wait, when I was on city council, or when I was on this board for 15 years. So that was kind of a little bit of conversation as well. Mayor Caldwell, anything I missed? I don't want to be long-winded. Property tax, that's right, that was a great one. So speak to property tax. He would like property tax, and we kind of all agreed we'd love it to come from the governor to take the burden off us locally, but to have property tax automatically lift to be level. Speak to it, Mayor Caldwell, because you were really passionate.
Well, just for us, we're one of the oldest cities in the state, and Marcia has been through a couple of truth and taxation hearings, and we'll be through probably another this year. But the language that is required is very manipulative, and it makes it really difficult to do things. And when we're looking at how do you pay for water infrastructure, internet infrastructure, everything else, there's got to be a mechanism to do that. And Cam laughed and said, since I got elected 10 years ago, I've been hammering on him the entire time. But just a small adjustment would help in an enormous way to accommodate for some of this growth. We look at, a residential property tax of 55% versus 100% on a commercial area. It's really difficult to want to go put more affordable housing in your commercial districts because you're only getting 55 cents on the dollar, but you still have to service it at an increased level at that point, not just at a residential level, but putting density into some of those areas. You have to increase it at a higher level because there are higher calls for service, there are more water needs, there's a whole lot more that goes into that. And so if they really are sincere about wanting higher density in other areas, they've got to look at that as a tool that needs to be adjusted a little bit. And I know that's a heavy lift for Cameron. He's been banging his head on that wall for a long time, and I've appreciated it. And we've seen some willingness in the last number of years to talk about it, whereas we saw nothing for the first 5 or 6 years I was there. But I think that would be a huge win if they really are serious about accommodating more growth and higher density and some other things. They've got to be willing to give us a couple of tools to put the infrastructure in the ground to take care of it and to manage that. So that was one of the things that we talked about in our group. And that might be a larger city issue right now, or an older city issue. But I think it's something everybody in this room is going to face as we look at this continued growth trend and everything else that we're doing. Did that cover it, Michelle?
Perfect. Thank you, Mayor. Is any other comments from the folks in that corner that you want to add? The one thing I'll add is I found Mayor Daines's comment refreshingly honest. Not the first part of the conversation about mini power. That was scary. It was the second piece is we were talking about the messaging campaign to the public and what does success look like, and she acknowledged that we're trying to figure it out. Like she wasn't, and I think she spoke for our whole group that we weren't sure what success necessarily looks like because of how quickly the public has soured on growth. And so, Mayor Ramsey, you wanted to add a piece on the growth conversation.
Yeah, just on the messaging that it's significant for us to be invited by the state. They don't, it was asked in our group too, well, what is their objective? What do they want the message to be? They don't know. To be honest, we are being invited to be to the table, to be part of deciding that because we really helped push for this conversation. On behalf of all of us, on behalf of all of our city councils and all of our municipalities and the several years that we've been there and seen our colleagues come and go because they approved growth or density or something and then they weren't brought back, this is a conversation that as long as I've been here, we've been asking for it, probably way before that, but I can only speak to my experience, which has been, we've been asking for this for a long time. And so as a league collectively, and those of us individually who have really kind of pushed for this conversation, we need to have a conversation with the residents of the state about the realities of growth. When we're elected to these positions, there's even if we do come into this with an anti-growth mindset, which we have people who do, there's a quick education process in this is the reality of what we're up against, and you don't have to like it anything, but this is the truth. This is what it is, and so asking for this and asking for the state to please take the lead on messaging as every city, every town, every municipality is trying to message ourselves to our communities. A state-led conversation is something that we've been asking for, and I've been very vocal about that and was at UAOC. So it's huge for us to have the chance to collaborate with the state to figure out what that messaging is. And I do think it gives us a good opportunity to send some messages to the legislature. But to really, what do we want our residents to understand? What do we want the legislature to understand? But what messaging do we, as policymakers, as the neighbors of people, as those who sit in these council meetings? We had city council meeting till midnight. I left City Hall at midnight last night. I got off a plane from Boston that was at 2 a.m. and flew and then went straight to City Hall and got done at midnight last night. And surprisingly, it was because people wanted homes to be where it was proposed to keep this barn and turn it into an event center. And that was going to ruin their neighborhood and ruin their investment in their homes. If this little event center was at the entrance of the neighborhood and instead of homes, they actually wanted homes instead. I mean, how often do you go till midnight because people want more homes instead of keeping a barn and turning it into an event center? Anyway, that was fun. But the messaging on growth, please really think hard and talk to your councils and think hard because the state does want our input. This is the biggest opportunity we've had to be part of the message to the public. What do we wish they understood sitting from our seats, or what do we see as a good way to grow forward, or what do we wish we maybe could say but can't? What collectively, this is our best opportunity. So please really continue to think about this and talk to your teams and let's weigh in and make sure that we are providing really good input that can be taken by GOPB and turned into a statewide messaging campaign that we've been at the heart of.
Madam President, can I just interject really quick? I want to thank you for serving on that committee. One of the things we talk about all the time when it comes to the legislature, you either have a seat at the table or you're on the menu. You get to pick. And that's on everybody in here to say, we want a seat at the table and let's figure that out. We don't want to be on the menu. And so I appreciate your willingness to serve on that and your time commitment to volunteer to do that and to represent us. So thank you all very much.
Perfect. Thank you, Mayor Caldwell. I think that's also a nice pivot to dinner tonight because we will have a board dinner in just a few minutes. Let me summarize where we ended up, and then Mayor Ramsey, I'll turn it to you for Mayor Caldwell's favorite motion. This discussion was terrific. We as league staff will review the notes and coordinate tonight. I'll probably tweak the approach to caucuses tomorrow. Remember, we'll have a quarter of attendees tomorrow will be attending the League of Conference for the first time. So that means there are a lot of newly elected officials who will be meeting with you tomorrow, and we're going to try to facilitate this same type of conversation with a lot more people. So think about how you can help pull that out, and then just in your conversations with your fellow electeds, how we can continue to gather this information so that we as a staff can put it into a strategic approach for the interim, both on the policy side with the UEOC and the CHA, as well as on the public engagement side with the governor's office. The second thing, timing wise, is that we will take option 2, which you adopted on dues, and we can now finish our tentative budget for you to review in May. So you'll have a tentative budget to you several days in advance of the May board meeting. That May board meeting is on Monday, May 16th at noon. That'll be a hybrid meeting at the league office and via Zoom, where you'll approve the tentative budget. So you'll have the opportunity to review it, provide feedback, approve the tentative budget for the final budget approval in June. And then timing wise, the public engagement, communication strategy and growth, we're meeting every 2 weeks. Our first meeting was the day of the March board meeting, and we're meeting every 2 weeks. So we'll take the feedback we're getting from this conference back to Laura and the rest of the stakeholder group. The UEOC next meets in mid-May to start laying out who's going to be on what subcommittees and figure out their action plan. So we'll probably have an opportunity for one more follow-up discussion at that May board meeting, and then we're going to be off and running in the interim. So between now and then, if you have additional ideas in either of these spaces, let us know. Likewise, if you or anyone in your cities want to participate in any of the UEOC subgroups, so Mayor Ramsey's on the main group, and league staff is on every subgroup, and then we want additional league voices on the subgroups. So last year, Mayor Ramsey, Justin, and I were on the subgroup on growth. We also, there was a subgroup that had Gunnison Mayor Lori Ney represent the league, former Heber Mayor Colleen Potter represent the league. So if there are others, either you personally or others in your cities who you think I'd really want to elevate them in these conversations, let us know. The last item is that Mayor Shepherd represents Clearfield and the league within the National League of Cities right now. You're the co-chair of FAIR, right? Am I remembering that correctly? Yeah. And so, Mayor, can you take 30 seconds and just summarize the Davis-Bacon outreach from NLC, and then I'll forward the email tonight?
Sure, yeah, there's the Department of Labor has got a roundtable they're putting together on Monday. The NLC has asked me to sit on their roundtable and discuss Davis-Bacon. There's some proposal coming down to change Davis-Bacon wages that will affect cities and will affect small businesses throughout. So if you haven't seen it, I'm gonna have Cam forward it to you. If you take a look at it, just give me any feedback so that I'm not talking just from Mayor Shepherd point of view, but Utah as a whole and what might be important to us there.
Are the proposed just to increase the wages?
No, they're adding in some things and it'll some decent, some significant changes to it. But
Mayor, in the past, that has often been an issue around Hill Air Force Base. Is this effort at all driven by that, or is this bigger than that?
No, this is
Bigger.
national. Yeah, in fact, we're actually looking at a project right now and we're looking at some federal funds. But Davis-Bacon, our wages right now for the project we were looking at, just our regular wages have exceeded Davis-Bacon. So just because of what our economy has done. So it's not really an effect on there, but it is overall, it will affect a lot of things.
We will get Mayor Shepherd's informational email out tonight. And then the conference is officially kicked off at the board meeting, but tomorrow morning we will have the newly elected breakfast. And even though most of you are not newly elected, you're welcome to come to that breakfast to meet your newly elected counterparts. That'll be at 7:30, right, Susan? I don't have my app in front of me. Okay, so 7:30, and then powers and duties, and then John Valanthen. Again, the VIP event will be up the stairs, so please just proceed there right away. I'll just plan on all board members going to that VIP event. Women in local government will be at lunch. And then we'll have caucus meetings in the afternoon and the dinner tomorrow night. Tonight's dinner is at Cliffside Restaurant, which is up on the bluff, the old airport site, and the new Tech Ridge site, right? Is that, I have the right term for Tech Ridge? The reservation is at 5:30. you're welcome to arrive at any time and we'll welcome you there. So thank you again for all of your time and insight today. And again, on a personal note, thank you very much for the confidence that you have in me, and thank you on behalf of my family as well, and on behalf of our team. Mayor Ramsey.
With that, I'm going to ask Mayor Caldwell for his favorite.
Move to adjourn.
We have a second. All in favor? Thank you so much, all of you.